Hey guys, welcome to today's episode, and we have Greg, the Hydrogen Man, or you can call him the H Man. He is a serious hydrogen therapy guy. He is just all about molecular hydrogen therapy. It's been his passion for over 10 years, and we're going to be talking about the hydrogen fast, how to get your health to a whole new level. So, Greg, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
So one of the things that you talk about is something called the hydrogen fast. So I'm really curious about that. What is that, and how has that kind of changed your life?
So hydrogen fasting is something that I invented. I was really sick. So technically, I'm not even supposed to be alive right now. I was extremely ill. I had numerous, health and medical problems. And what a lot of people don't know about me is that I actually worked in the medical field for like 2 decades. So a long time. I really understand how it all worked. I knew what happened behind the scenes. And when I got sick, it was absolutely terrible because I knew the gauntlet that I would have to go through, and I really didn't want any part of it. I was definitely not a health guru at the time. I really didn't understand a lot about health. And so I had to find my own way. And I'm a real data-driven guy. So I'm not really big on just opinions. There's a lot of opinions out there. It was very frustrating for me to watch different podcasts and listen to different people, even doctors, where they're all basically contradicting each other. And one of the things that I obviously found was fasting. And I definitely did a lot of fasting. And fasting's important, but it's very important to do it correctly. And what I mean by being data-driven is I really look at a lot of scientific studies rather than listening to whether it's a doctor or a naturopath or whoever, really, because everybody has, again, their opinions. And I wanted to just go off of data. I'll give you an example. So, for example, you'd watch some podcast and somebody will say, hey, alkaline water is the best water to drink. Somebody will say, no, spring water is the best water to drink. And somebody will be like, no, you should be drinking this, this ionized water stuff or even hydrogen stuff. And so there's so many different opinions. And, oh, no, you should only drink distilled water. And so there were so many differences of opinion on what the best water was. And so I just did critical thinking, and I thought for myself, like, what do I really want out of my water? Because water is super crucial when fasting. It's extremely important to do fasting correctly, in my opinion. Okay, I will say,
Yes, 100%.
And I will say, I don't give any medical advice. I don't make any medical claims, and everything I'm stating today are just my opinions. I'm not making any claims for or against any product or products. I just really need to say that out there because this is important. And so the critical thinking that I did with water was, I just thought to myself, I just want water that's clean, like the cleanest water, meaning I don't want any chemicals in it. I don't want certain things in it. And unfortunately, I ended up having to become a specialist in numerous fields when trying to get my health back and save my life, basically. And one of the things that I literally have a lab test right here. So this is a third-party lab test, and there's literally pages of all these chemicals. I mean, pages. I mean, just the craziest stuff in our water. Some of the stuff that really surprised me on the lab tests is, yes, pesticides, pharmaceuticals, but these are the other ones that really surprised me. There's so many. I had no idea we had radioactive contaminants in our water. I had no idea. That one actually scared the hell out of me. And who it affects the most? Children, little babies and children, because their bodies aren't fully developed. Clean water is so essential to health, in my opinion. It's just crucially important. And then on top of it all, bacteria, viruses, cysts, parasites, and all these biological contaminants in our water. And how do you really clean it out? And so I looked at every water filtration modality in existence. I know every single way of filtering water. And there is really only one way that truly fully purifies water, and that is carbon distillation. And if you want to see the product that I use, the website's called mypurewater.com. If people want a discount code, they can use the code uprising144K if they want to. You don't have to, doesn't matter, but it does give you a discount. So that's how I did everything. Everything was based on laboratory studies, scientific evidence. And then I realized that Japan was way ahead of the curve when it came to really understanding not only like water and diet, things of this stuff, this magnitude that really helped me overcome my health problems. And then I learned about hydrogen. So hydrogen was...
First I want to stop right there because I want you to answer that question, because I think this is a huge controversial topic, like you just said, alkaline, Kangen water, distilled water, spring water. And so I want you to actually talk real quick about what the pros and cons of having alkaline water or distilled water or having spring water or hydrogen water.
All right. So that's a really good question too. When you say Kangen water or alkaline water, it's actually vague because you can make alkaline water in many ways. You can literally take tap water, put baking soda in it, and boom, it's alkaline water. Is that going to solve all your problems? In my opinion, definitely not. So the Kangen machines actually cause, in my opinion, I say in my opinion, okay, I'll say in my opinion, but I did read studies and research on this. The problem with research, and this goes for anybody who's doing scientific research, is that there's a difference between short-term data and long-term data. So the reason that the Kangens became so popular is because in short-term data, it looked really good. And everybody thought, oh my gosh, these Kangen machines are amazing. Look at the data on them. The problem is then the long-term data. The long-term data did not look good. And then it was like, why is this happening? Everybody thought it was because of the pH of the water that it had these benefits, which ended up not being true, by the way. Because again, we can make alkaline water very easily. And that alkalinity is different. That alkaline water is not from putting a mineral. It's not from putting baking soda. It's through ionization of the water. So all these different alkaline waters are actually they're not the same. So we're using one word for something that it depends on how you actually go about doing it. Same thing goes for hydrogen. There's numerous ways to make it. And in my opinion, there's the right way, which is the medical way that I researched. And there's definitely the wrong way. And there's a lot of that going on these days. So sorry that it's a little confusing. So basically, the Kangen machines are creating this alkaline water that appears to cause issues with your GI system after long-term usage. But why is it causing issues with the GI? Because what happens is your stomach's actually designed to be acidic. You literally have these acids in your stomach, and you're designed to have them because they have a function. And the function of them are to break down food properly so that you can properly absorb nutrients. It's even there to kill certain pathogens so that you don't get those in your system. Now, this is a scientific fact. Anybody can research it. As we age, we make less and less stomach acids. So by using something like the Kangen, it actually was disrupting that and causing issues with people's acidity in their stomach. So it's actually something that, in my opinion, is very problematic and causes more problems than it solves. Then later on, they found out that it was never the pH that was given the benefit when it had to do with the Kangen. The Kangen machines were inadvertently, literally by accident, making a little bit of hydrogen. And that's where the benefit really appeared to be coming from. And so then the Japanese have been doing research on the hydrogen thing a lot. And once they figured out that it was really the hydrogen that appears to be bringing all these results, and there's not just like 50 studies or 100 studies. At this point, I believe there's over 2,000 studies so far. It's something that is now not only very medically legitimate, it's actually medically approved. So they use hydrogen gas in Japan. It's medically approved. And they use it for different things. It's actually really fascinating, but I won't go into those details at this time. So in order to make the best hydrogen water in the world, and also just hydrogen gas, because I inhale it for my health also, I have it right here actually. And so ultimately, the best way to do it, in my opinion, was I clean my water to the highest degree, which is carbon distillation. So that just fully cleans the water. If you want to add minerals to it, you can. I have some. I put very little in there. I found that you really want most of your minerals from your food, actually. But then you put it in a proper hydrogen machine. So I use the best one in the world. I don't mess around when it comes to hydrogen because there's little machines out there. Like, for example, I don't know if you've ever seen these like little bottles that they claim to make hydrogen. And they do make some, but I'm not a fan of these at all. Mostly because, well, they are made in China. I'm sure everybody thinks that China really has our best health at their best interest, but I don't know if I believe that. But I've seen the lab tests of the membranes and what they're made of. The metal that they use when you go through the process of ionization to extract hydrogen, they're using plated metal. China doesn't have the best technology when it comes to metallurgy. And so the device I use is Japanese. So I use and it happens to be the number one device in all of Japan. And medical professionals who are actually hydrogen specialists in Japan, this is the machine that they use and recommend, which is called the Lourdes Hydrofix. If people want to see it, the official site is called holyhydrogen.com. If people want to go see the equipment that I use. When you put pure hydrogen and fully dissolve it into water, because that's what we're doing. We're dissolving a gas, molecular hydrogen's a gas, you dissolve it in the water, and whatever water you choose. Now with a Kangen, you can't do that because a Kangen, you have to actually hook it up to your water line, and then they have filters that they use, which I'm not a fan of the filters they use because I like the cleanest water in the world. The device that I use, you can put any water you want. So I have a very separate device for carbon distillation, and then I put whatever I want, the water I want in the device to saturate the hydrogen in there. And hydrogen is pH neutral, so it shouldn't affect the pH. It doesn't make your water alkaline. It's also odorless, colorless, and tasteless. And the health benefits are obviously pretty dramatic. That's literally what saved my life. I made a lot of changes in my life. I tried all sorts of different diets. I tried all sorts of different supplements. I tried all sorts of different technologies. I saw numerous doctors. Nothing was helping me. And it wasn't until I created basically this protocol of my own. And part of it is the cleanest water. I definitely did fasting. And that's actually when I invented the hydrogen fast, which nobody really knows about because I invented it. And so I do a specific fast using hydrogen and the cleanest water in the world. And of course, I load up on nutrients before doing a fast because, in my opinion, that's very important because fasts deplete you quite a bit. And so that's how I went about it. Not only did I transform my life, I started using this technique on other people, specifically people in like my family or friends. Like one of the really good examples, somebody close to me, having issues with high blood pressure, high cholesterol, diabetes, arthritis, and glaucoma. All those issues went away with the hydrogen technique that I used with them. And it was so dramatic. That's when I really was like, holy cow, this is doing not only something for me, but it's working for other people. And then since then, I started my YouTube channel and I just give the information for free. I just want people to have this information because there's too many people suffering in the world today. And I just want people to have an avenue because I know what it's like to suffer. I mean, my medical condition just totally ruined my life. For people who don't know, I had tumors all over my body. I had a heart condition that was supposed to end my life, and I was told I needed open heart surgery. I had autoimmune issues. I had inflammation all over the place to the point where I literally couldn't lift up a remote control and like try to change a channel on a television because my joints hurt that bad. And it was just so depressing. So many gut issues that I also had, which seemed to be related to the autoimmune issue that I had on top of it all. And my liver and my kidneys were not, at their best. And like my nails were all weak. And I just had so many medical problems. My body was really an absolute mess. And then I've taken it all the way to the other drastic measures where I get blood work regularly and I get checked out regularly. And I need to make sure that what I've been doing is working. And not only is it working, I mean, I literally had the last phone call I got was from a doctor who did the blood work and they saw the results. And when they saw them, they actually called me because they're like, I would like to know how you're achieving this. The doctor, she said, I've been doing this for decades. I've never seen blood work like yours ever in my entire life. And I was like, whoa, that's a pretty big statement there. And she said, I want to know what you're doing because I want to not only do it for my patients, but I want to do it also for my own daughter. Her daughter's apparently sick. And she said, even for myself. So it's kind of funny. Most of the doctors who contact me are dealing with their own medical issues on top of it also. Even they are suffering. So people are just suffering. And I think it's really important for people to have really good information and knowledge so that they can improve their lives. I just think it makes the world a better place.
Did you guys know that 97% of Americans are deficient in at least one mineral? It's true. You need more than a dozen minerals for your body to function at its best. But with the standard American diet, it's almost impossible. So here's where Beam Minerals comes in. Guess what? All you have to do, take one little shot of this one little shot of this one, and guess what? It looks like this, but it tastes like water. Take one shot and boom, in 30 seconds a day, you're getting an entire thing of minerals instead of an entire cabinet of supplement bottles. So with Beam Minerals, we make mineral balance simple. So I want to talk about the alkaline water for just a second because I think alkaline water is terrible for you because I think that alkaline water can neutralize stomach acid and that can increase harmful bacteria. And if you have like acid reflux, drinking the alkaline water is going to reduce your stomach acid, like you just mentioned. So now if you're reducing your stomach acid, now you're going to have more acid reflux if you have it. And if you have high pH alkaline water and now you're getting your stomach acid worse and worse and worse, now you've got damage to your mucosal lining. You can affect your potassium levels. There's just all kinds of things. So I remember taking, when the whole craze of like the Kangen and the alkaline water came in, I would drink that, and I already have low stomach acid. So like you said, as you get older, your stomach acid gets worse and worse. And when I was young, when I was pregnant with my son, I threw up about 6 to 10 times a day, every day from the time that I got pregnant till the day I gave birth. While I was pushing him out, I threw up probably 25 times at the minimum. So major stomach acid issues. And then a couple of years while I was in college, I was bulimic. So the combination of those two items, my stomach acid, when I started to having personally doing the alkaline water, and then I started doing research, and I realized that is absolutely the worst thing for you to do. And as far as what you were saying, as far as the making sure that you do the distilled water, I do agree. I think, getting a really great distiller. I bought a, I think it's either $300 or $500. I can't remember. I know it was really expensive distiller that I have, but I always think about that of, okay, what about like drinking Mountain Valley water or like a really clean spring water that does have minerals to it? I don't want to kill all the minerals. And I heard what you said about getting your minerals from your food, but wouldn't it be good if you got minerals from your water and your food? So what would you say to that?
So again, I'm data driven. So going off the actual data, what happens is there is actually such a thing as organic and inorganic minerals. And minerals are truly transformed through food. So if I were to give you an example, let's say you're deficient in iron. You don't want to grab a piece of iron that's like a piece of metal and start sucking on it, because that would actually be toxic for you. And if you get iron from your vegetables, for example, that's going to be a much better source. Now, I was already doing this, and then a scientific study came out proving that my method was working correctly, which is what I was doing is I was actually putting minerals in a smoothie that I create. And the smoothie that I created has fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds, even beans at times. And so I make these smoothies, and I did it because of the science. Again, following the data, the Japanese had really, really interesting data about fiber. So there's a lot of interesting information coming out about fiber out of Japan. And we even have some old studies in America. I don't know why they tried to suppress them, but fiber is so ridiculously important for our body. It's just, there's so many things that it does. And a lot of people will try to disagree with this, and that's fine. Look, I'm not here trying to convince people. These are the methods that I use. They clearly are working on me, and they're clearly working on other people. And what happens with the fiber is, in this particular study, they literally did a study on smoothies like the ones I'm making. And when they add minerals to it, the body was literally rebuilding bone. And they were not even expecting that as a result. And your bones were rebuilding. And basically what appears to be the case is that the minerals work with the fiber. And it's almost like a time release in the body of these minerals being able to absorb really, really good into the body. So it actually appears to help a lot with the mineral absorption, which is really important. The absorption is really crucial. So it really looks like you should be getting your minerals from like 80% from your food. As far as with water, I mean, I add little minerals here and there. I don't do it every single time. I could show you the minerals that I use. I'm very picky about every product that I pick. I do a lot of research on all of them. And I use these minerals where they eliminate actually almost all the salt. I know a lot of people try to use like, I use Himalayan salt, so I'm getting my minerals from my salt. The problem with things like that is you have to look at the content of minerals versus the content of salt. And Himalayan salt, though I do use it and I like it on my food, the problem is that it has a very low mineral content versus a very high content of salt. And salt is not very good for us either. The research and the data on that is actually really quite clear. Not that we don't need any salt, but we really shouldn't have too much. It's not very good for us. And so utilizing all this knowledge, all these methods to create protocols.
Guys, I just want to interrupt for just a second, and I want you to hear Paul Saladino talk about why liver is so important. And if you don't like liver, we have another option for you.
your ancestors were eating liver. And the reason that this sort of wisdom has been passed down is because liver is very nutritious. It's basically nature's multivitamin. If you look at the nutrients in meat, they're great. You've got zinc, you got B6, you got B12, you got some K2. But if you look at liver, it really complements what's in muscle meat. And there are many unique nutrients found in organs, specifically liver as a powerhouse of these, that are difficult to obtain outside of liver. Like meat and organs are like peanut butter and jelly. They just go together. They're supposed to be eaten together. The easiest way to eat liver is just to do it raw. If you don't want to eat liver raw, you can cook it. But the reason that I like to do it raw is because there are unique nutrients in liver that are probably somewhat degraded when you cook the liver.
This really is like the most nutrient-rich supplements that you can find, and they are amazing. I have tried them. I absolutely love them. So just go to heartandsoil.co, use the coupon code Chantel Ray, and save you some money there. So tell us what a day in the life of Hydrogen Man looks like. So down to kind of what foods do you eat, what foods do you not eat, and kind of that make you feel absolutely optimal.
Well, so, okay, there's a lot of reasons for the things that I do, but if I were to keep it pretty simple, the first thing I do when I start my day, again, when I have knowledge, I want to find ways to actually put them into practice. Right? Instead of when somebody gives you information that is really not that easy or to put into practice or maybe too ridiculously expensive. So the very first thing I do in the morning is I always grab a toothbrush, no toothpaste. I just wet the toothbrush and I brush my teeth for 10, 20 seconds really quick and brush the inner surfaces of the mouth, meaning the roof, the inner lining of the cheeks, your tongue. And somebody might be like, what does that have anything to do with anything? The reason is because, again, the Japanese, and they're always, I don't know why the best research seems to come out of Japan. I find research everywhere, but the best and latest data seems to be coming out of Japan. They're really into the health thing. And they discovered that we grow really bad bacteria in our mouth while we're sleeping. Some of it even appears to be cancer-causing bacteria. And so when you wake up in the morning, if you drink water or if you drink coffee or you eat something, you're inadvertently swallowing this bad bacteria into your system. And so the first thing I do is clean my mouth. It's really easy. You just brush, 20 seconds, you're good. Then the very next thing I do, very first thing in the morning, is I drink hydrogen water. So it's super clean water, meaning the cleanest there is, and because it's carbon distilled. And then I dissolve hydrogen into it, made properly and safely. Just so you know, I'm not a fan of hydrogen pills. I'm not a fan of any machine that uses chemicals to make their hydrogen. Some, believe it or not, use things like lye, sodium hydroxide, or even cheap products like these, or Kangen. I don't do any of that. So I use the Lourdes Hydrofix Premium, as I already mentioned to you guys, and it fully saturates the water with hydrogen. And by the way, I'm not sure if you're aware that nature does this. If you want to know more about that, I'll mention in a second. So I drink that water. And it really is going to depend on the level of health of your kidneys, maybe even what medications or certain issues that you have. So that's why I'm not giving any medical advice. Everybody does it or should probably do it a little differently, but I have my own protocol for myself. So I'll drink that hydrogen water, and it's really important to get the body fully hydrated first thing in the morning. We literally wake up dehydrated. And so that's the first thing. And then after that, and I show this, by the way, on my YouTube channel for free. So then I go and make a smoothie. And a lot of times I make what's called I use a vacuum. I don't know if you've ever heard of a vacuum blender, but you don't have to use that. But I make a vacuum blended smoothie where it sucks the oxygen out of the blender so that it literally doesn't oxidize your food when you're blending it, because there's actual science, again, data showing that the nutrients are much higher when you don't oxidize your food while you're preparing it, as far as, like, for example, on a smoothie. And a smoothie gets everything in there. I put everything in there. I've never seen anybody make a smoothie like the one I invented ever, which is kind of wild to me. But I mean, I put vegetables, I put some fruits, I put nuts in it, I put certain seeds in it, and once in a while I put beans in it. Now, specific bean called natto, N-A-T-T-O. It's most likely the number one superfood probably in the world, in all of Japan. They've done so many research studies on it, from being anti-cancerous to having some certain properties as far as like thinning your blood out a little bit, which is really great so that the blood can get into all the areas it needs to get to, and massive amounts of protein in it. It's almost the same amount of protein as beef. This stuff is like crazy good for you. So I put that in there. And then I literally was just drinking it before we started doing the podcast, having my breakfast. So I have these smoothies that are just filled with minerals, they're filled with fiber, they're filled with a lot of vitamins, it's filled with a lot of protein. It's just filled with filled with enzymes, filled with phytonutrients. It's filled up with everything. And that's what I kind of live off. I drink that smoothie for breakfast. I have some for lunch. And then after that, then, I do a healthy dinner. And again, I post a lot of the different dinners that I do on my channel. And I also eat a lot of mushrooms. The science on mushrooms, which literally there's new data that just came out on mushrooms. I'm glad that I've been a fan of them for so long. But there's a huge correlation now between basically overcoming or not getting dementia or Alzheimer's. There's some certain properties to the mushrooms that are really, really valuable. You're supposed to eat them at least 2 to 3 times a week, and it significantly brings down the probability of something like dementia, according to the data, the preliminary data that's coming out. And they did a research on a lot of people in Japan who are centennials, people who are like 100 years old who just don't have dementia. And they found that pattern as far as people eating mushrooms, and then they did research on it. So that's kind of a little bit of what I do. Though I drink my hydrogen water not only in the morning, I also have some for lunchtime, and then I have it a little towards the evening time around right before dinner. I always load up on the hydrogen water before 20 to 30 minutes before meals because it's very helpful. That's part of the technique. And then a lot of times I'll even inhale the hydrogen gas while I'm literally, eating my dinner or having my smoothie, also due to the ability for it appears to help you absorb nutrients. So that's another one. That's one of the things that like I said, the doctors that I've done blood work with, and the latest one, they just can't believe it. They're like, I just can't believe that you eat the way you do and that you don't have any nutritional deficiencies. Almost everybody has nutritional deficiencies. They said, how are you accomplishing that? And, it's not like, people want to eat meat, that's fine. But there's many reasons that I don't eat meat. And so that's one of the ones that just shocked my doctor. They just couldn't believe that my nutrients in my blood were where they were at, considering that I don't actually eat meat. So.
Sure. So just explain kind of the difference between hydrogen gas and hydrogen water.
So basically, we are talking about a specific type of hydrogen, and you have to be careful because there are hydrogens out there that, in my opinion, are not good. I'm not a fan of something called Brown's gas. I'm not a fan of deuterium hydrogen. We're talking about something called molecular hydrogen. And molecular hydrogen is a gas, much like oxygen is a gas. And what we're doing is we're saturating, dissolving it into the water. So kind of think of like carbonated water has also a dissolved gas called CO2, right? And so all we're doing is dissolving molecular hydrogen in this gas into the water. So you're using water as a carrier. The real main reason that it appears that people came up with this idea was because, have you heard of a place called Lourdes, France? You ever heard of a place, Lourdes, France? Really? Okay. So this is supposed to be like a holy site, which is interesting because the website is called Holy Hydrogen. Right? That's kind of funny, but this holy site in Lourdes, France, where people literally drinking the water over there out of this spring, the Lourdes spring, and people were literally, their medical conditions or their diseases were going away. And a lot of people thought this was placebo, and they did literally send scientists to study the water because they started documenting the amount of cases of people's medical conditions going away. And it was vast. There were so many people and well documented. So they thought there's got to be something about this water. So they researched the water, and everybody came back and said, there's nothing special about it. It's just H2O. Nobody noticed anything. And probably because when you take a sample and you send it to a lab, the hydrogen gas escapes. It doesn't stay in the water very long. So nobody could figure it out. It was actually the Japanese who figured it out. Brilliant. They discovered that water is actually has high levels of molecular hydrogen gas. They tested it on site, and then they discovered that. That's when they went to the lab and they started doing laboratory studies on molecular hydrogen gas on animals, and they saw amazing results. I've actually seen a lot of the footage. I kind of wish I had some for you because it's so mind-boggling what it's doing to the body. One of my videos, video number 68, I number a lot of my videos. Number 68, to make it easy for people to find, I have a live blood analysis of what blood looks like, and then they had the patient drink really clean, healthy spring water. And then they had that same water and they put it into literally the same hydrogen machine I use actually for this particular lab test. Then they had the person drink that one. And all the lab tests, you should have seen the one when they drank the hydrogen water. It was so unreal that when I posted it, not only that I have numerous doctors contacting me, there was this one doctor, she was really stubborn. She said, look, what you're showing there is impossible. She said, it's just impossible. This has got to be a scam. And I understand when I first read the medical data on hydrogen, I thought it was a scam. I mean, the first studies came out in like 2007. And so I was very skeptical myself, as I am. That's why I'm data driven. I need to see data. And so what she wanted to do is she literally bought the exact same machine. We found out all the parameters out of the test that they did. And she went to her own lab, did the own test on her own. And she wanted me to show the results. She wanted me to show them on my channel. She kind of made me promise to her, hey, no matter what the results are, you willing to show people that if this information's not right, you're going to show that to them. And I said, absolutely. I'm looking for the truth. I only want to share the truth on my channel. And so anyway, after she got the results back, the results came back exactly the same. She's like, I can't believe it. This stuff is unreal. It really is the real deal. And I'm like, I know. It really is truly, in my opinion, a miracle. And so it's amazing how it affects the blood. But it does so much more than that. It even opens up ghost vessels. I don't know if you know what those are, but the number one university in the world that researches hydrogen, called Keio University in Japan, they discovered that hydrogen opens up these ghost vessels in the body, which are places where blood used to get into and no longer gets into, which is extremely important. People don't understand. There's actually an ancient scriptural verse that says life is in the blood. If I were to cut off the blood supply to my arm would die. The blood is bringing life to my body. And there's a lot of nutrients in the blood, and the blood carries gases too. That's why we test for oxygen saturation levels in the blood. You can do that with hydrogen too, by the way. And so this is really important. And so obviously getting proper blood supply to the proper areas. As we age, just like the stomach acid thing, we have these places where we used to get blood that we don't get blood there anymore. And they're kind of like a ghost town, and they call them ghost vessels. It's a medical term. You can actually look it up. And so hydrogen appears to open up these ghost vessels again and start bringing in blood again back to these areas, which brings all those nutrients to these tissues. And the effects that it's had on, I mean, like I said, from cancer to diabetes to dementia and Alzheimer's to heart conditions. My heart condition, I was told that I needed open heart surgery. And when I started trying to figure out, I tried all these different ways of using hydrogen first because I didn't understand how you make it matters. That's how dumb I was. And then in time, I realized that it really does matter how you make it. And so when I got the best machine in the world, which was the best one in all of Japan, and I noticed all the scientific data lined up perfectly with the scientific literature. So I went for it and I got one of these machines and created my protocols, and my heart condition literally went away. I was already scheduled with a cardiologist. I had been thoroughly tested. They saw the issue that I had. The doctor literally told me, he goes, you'd be lucky to have 10 years. He goes, your heart is really bad. And I was using the hydrogen and messing around with different protocols. My condition literally went away. I went there for the very last day where I was going to start scheduling some stuff for the surgery, and it just disappeared. And I'd had this condition for decades. And so the doctor was like, what in the world just happened? These things don't happen. They don't just disappear. And hydrogen is medically approved for heart attacks, for example. It appears to be really good for the heart. And obviously, you know that, heart disease is one of the number one killers in the world, either number one or number two, at least in America, kind of flip-flops with cancer. And so it's just been such a lifesaver. And the things that it's done for, friends and family, and now numerous people. I mean, I worked with a lady, this was interesting, a woman with TBI, traumatic brain injury. And so it appears to be so amazing for the brain on top of it all. And this poor woman was actually going to take her own life. I didn't know that, but she had contacted me, and I didn't know that she was on that verge. She could barely talk. Her speech was really bad. Her memory was horrible. She would forget what she was saying every 10 to 20 seconds. And I just felt really bad for her, and I helped her. And she got on a good hydrogen protocol. And I remember when she called me. She called me 6 months later, and I didn't even recognize her. She was like, hey, I just wanted to call you, and I wanted to thank you. And I'm thinking, who is this? And she said, I just wanted to thank you for saving my life. And I was thinking, I didn't save anybody's life. I didn't jump into a river and save a drowning woman. And it turned out it was this woman. The reason I didn't recognize her is because she was talking normal and she could remember things. And I was so blown away because she explained to me who she was. And I was like, oh my gosh, wait a second. Yeah, I remember you. And she said, I just wanted to let you know that the reason you saved my life is because I was actually planning on taking my life. And I was like, whoa, I didn't know that. And she said, I made a prayer, and literally within 24 hours, she popped up on some video. And she said, I just knew it. I could just feel it. And I felt like it was worth trying. And she did try it, and it changed her life. In fact, if you want to see her testimonial, it's amazing. The company has their own YouTube channel. I think it's called Holy Hydrogen. I don't know the name of their channel, but they literally filmed her, and they did a whole interview with her, and she gave her whole testimonial, and it was absolutely life-changing. She had been to numerous doctors. Nobody ever helped her with her medical condition because nobody could fix her TBI from I think it was a car accident. And so anyway, just there's been so much amazing scientific literature and testimonials, and I'm a testimonial too. So it's been absolutely life-changing. I love that stuff. I love hydrogen.
So I want you to just because for someone who's listening, I want you to break it down a little bit as simple as possible to explain what is hydrogen water. So like basically when you're at home, you basically have a machine, right? And you are linking up this machine. Like, do you have a machine there that you can kind of show us how it works or no?
Yeah, I can show you. It's pretty easy. I mean, the first thing there's my carbon distiller right there, right? So that's actually cleaning water right now. And I'll probably, you know what I should do is probably shut it off.
And I want to say this. I don't know about your distiller, but in my distiller that I have I can't remember. I know it was at least 300. It might have been 500. It is slow as snails. Like it takes the water. I mean, it takes like 5 hours to get at least like a small pitcher of water.
You know what? And that's a good point, but let me explain something to you. It's really important. Anything that filters water immediately is not actually fully purifying your water. It literally takes 3 to 6 hours to fully purify 1 gallon. That's why your distiller takes so long. Mine does the same thing. Now, they have really big systems. The website, the reason that I share the website that I use is because people always want to know what I use. I do a lot of research. Mine is an American-made distiller. I don't have one of the ones made in China or whatever. And there's a lot of things that they do to it that's a little different, and they lab test their stuff. But the point is they have these really big systems, and in these really big systems, you can hook them up directly to your water line and it'll distill the water, and it has a huge holding tank, and you can just grab water whenever you want. You know what I mean? So anyway, I'll show you the hydrogen machine because you were wanting to see it. But this is basically right here. This is the newest model. I'm using one for inhalation here. This was my old model. And then I got the newest one here. And I mean, it's full of water. I just filled it. And if I wanted to turn it on, I just hit the button once. There you go. And it's going to take half an hour to fully saturate 1.5 liters. So again, in order to make hydrogen properly, anything like the Kangen machine that just spits out the water immediately is not, in my opinion, being done right, because it takes time. Just like the distillation takes time, fully saturating hydrogen properly in a stable and quote unquote safe manner, in my opinion, takes time. So,
so let me just explain it to people. So the way I understand it is that hydrogen water is regular water, which you could first, I guess, take the water, distill it in a distilling machine, and then you can put it into another machine where the hydrogen water is basically mixed with hydrogen gas that's added to it. And I correct when I say that? Because you're basically doing a 2-part process. You're first taking the water, you're distilling it, getting rid of all of the, toxins and all the chemicals and everything that's in it. Then you're putting it into another machine, and that machine is where you're taking that distilled water, mixing it with hydrogen gas, correct?
Yeah, that's basically what you're doing, because the first thing is, if you notice on the machine, the hydrogen machine, you can put any kind of water you want. I mean, you could put spring water, you could put, reverse osmosis water, carbon filtered water. I just like to use the cleanest water there is. That's just my opinion on that. And what you're doing is you're using the water as a carrier for the gas. But you're ultimately correct. That's all you're doing is you're putting whatever kind of water, and you're dissolving the hydrogen gas into it, and you drink that water. And that's, I guess, the simplest way to put it. So yes, you're correct.
Did you guys know that your thyroid's main food is iodine? And guess what? Mercury and other toxins gobble up your selenium, and your thyroid glands need selenium to convert iodine to thyroxine. So if you have mercury fillings and with all the toxins and mold, your selenium just gets gobbled up. So here's the bottom line. I take something called Peak Thyroid. It's got iodine, it's got copper, and it's got selenium. Everything you need to get your thyroid back to functioning without medicine. So go to chantelrayway.com/upgraded formulas. Use the coupon code chantelray to get a huge discount. And so basically that hydrogen water, what you're saying is that it can increase energy, it's going to reduce inflammation. And what is the science behind it? When you're adding hydrogen to the water, what is it doing to help with your health?
Well, the first thing I'll say is they don't really know the full mechanism of exactly how it works. They've observed some things. They've seen that hydrogen appears to function as an anti-inflammatory. They saw that hydrogen really has a real positive effect on the mitochondria. So like you were saying, for energy and mitochondrial function, which is like extremely important for the body to work right and run right, is for your mitochondria to work properly. I've seen some things where it actually helps with the pH of your blood so that your blood can actually get even more oxygenated, because we already breathe oxygen. I know a lot of people like oxygen supplements. I'm not even that big of a fan of oxygen supplements, because if your body's running right and super efficiently, then we're already breathing in 20% or more, depending on your atmospheric pressure, where you're at in the world. But you're already getting plenty of oxygen. What you want to do is make your body efficient enough to be able to utilize that oxygen. And hydrogen appears to actually do that. I've seen it do that in regards to because of the way that it affects the pH of the blood, which, by the way, pH stands for potential hydrogen. A lot of people are unaware of that also. The hydrogen also has been shown to be effective in certain like cell signaling. The hydrogen water, for example, and the hydrogen gas also appears to work as what they kind of invented a term for it, which is a selective antioxidant. So a lot of people don't know. I could pull up a chart for you. I probably should have one. That antioxidants actually come in different sizes. Were you aware of that?
Mm-mm.
Yeah. So like if you were to look at like vitamin E being, let's say, this size, and glutathione would be like, this size, and vitamin C, and all these different antioxidants are different sizes. But what people don't understand is that they can't penetrate every part of the body. If you were to compare, even like glutathione, which again is a really big one, or CoQ10 is actually a really big one. The glutathione's a little smaller. If you were to compare them to hydrogen would be like just a speck. It's so tiny, and that's exactly what makes it so special, because it can enter anything and everything. In fact, hydrogen will literally go right through glass. It'll go right through all your tissues. It'll go right through walls. It's literally like, personally, I think it's an interdimensional molecule. That's just my opinion. But it can literally go through anything. There's nothing that it cannot go through. And so when you get it in your body, there is no place that it cannot get to. It goes right past the blood-brain barrier, actually even going to the pineal gland, which I think is really important personally. But it can go through any tissue in your body, even down to literally the core of your mitochondria. And one of the things that it really appears to do is neutralize free radicals. So the Japanese, this was a really great study. They had a list. I wish I had it for you. It was a really, really big list of all these medical conditions, like just a ton of them. I think it was almost 200 different medical conditions. I think the actual number was like 180 something. All these medical conditions. And next to every condition, they had the pharmaceutical medicine that you would be taking for each one of those conditions. And the list of medicines was huge. It was literally off the page compared to all these medical issues. And then they had even more pills for a lot of the side effects from the initial medicine. And then they showed hydrogen. And the reason they did this is because they had showed that hydrogen appeared to be effective for all these medical conditions. And what the scientists in Japan literally just couldn't figure out or understand is, how can this one thing, this hydrogen, literally appear to have such a positive effect on these medical conditions, even oftentimes working better than the pharmaceutical itself? So these scientists really wanted to understand why. And it's a really interesting story, because even the government of Japan actually was against hydrogen. They didn't want it to be medically approved, but there was too much medical evidence. They eventually didn't approve it. But they wanted to understand how one thing could do all this. And what they realized, millions of dollars and lots of research later, is that 98% roughly of all disease comes down to one thing. That's how crazy it is. And that's free radical damage. So like oxidative stress, or sometimes even called like ROS, reactive oxygen species. And what you're going to realize is that they're all forms of oxygen. Oxidative stress. Oxygen is technically, dare I say, death, because oxygen oxidizes. It kills things, there can be certain benefits from that. Life is all about balance of life and death and things to move properly. But this oxidative stress, if you have too much of it in your liver, it's going to cause liver issues. Too much of your brain, certain brain issues. So hydrogen goes into the body, and it has an affinity for oxygen, or for these oxidative, these free radicals basically in the body. And it goes to them and like neutralizes them. So it goes to this form of oxygen. You got hydrogen. H2O is what water is. So it turns into water, neutralizes this, brings down the inflammation, which is one of the things that they've seen, neutralizing these free radicals, and the body can begin to function the way that it should again, which is one of the reasons that I'm really big on overcoming nutritional deficiencies too, because what I'm trying to do is I neutralize all these free radicals in my body with the hydrogen. Plus, it does a lot more than that. All the positive effects that come from that. And then I want to give my body all the nutrients it needs. And I have certain methods. I mean, if you want to know how I do it, I can tell you, but overcome any nutritional deficiency, because the data clearly shows that nutritional deficiencies lead to disease. So if I give you one example again, it would be like scurvy. If somebody gets scurvy, they figured out that it's literally just a vitamin C deficiency. To fix scurvy, you bring up the person's vitamin C levels to the proper levels and scurvy goes away. And so there's a lot of data in regards to this, in regards to medical issues. And when I was trying to overcome my medical problems, I wanted to overcome every nutritional deficiency, and almost everybody's deficient in something. So I've developed techniques on how to do that too. And so I don't know if that answers your question, but
Yeah, I do want to hear more about that. So like, what are some of the minerals that you think that most people are deficient in and that you're seeing? Because we're having more and more people with autoimmune issues, more than I've ever seen. When I get questions in on our podcast, almost every one of them are complaining about some sort, and I have an autoimmune condition as well. So what would you say? Yeah. So it's almost like everyone's got some form of an autoimmune condition. So what would you say are, if someone has rheumatoid arthritis, or they have psoriasis, or they have any host of the most popular autoimmune conditions, what would be the minerals that you would say that the person is, and thyroid issues? I would say I've never seen more people with thyroid issues than we've ever had in our life as well. So what are some of the mineral deficiencies that you're seeing with those conditions?
So I hate to tell you that I wouldn't focus just on mineral deficiencies. You want to overcome nutritional deficiencies.
Okay.
And minerals on top of it. So that's the first thing. And then, of course, really clean water, because the things in the water, in my opinion, are one of the number one sources of causing the disruption that causes the autoimmune issue. Again, I had an autoimmune issue. I don't have it anymore. I was able to overcome it, and it wasn't the most complicated thing in the world. First, clean water. I cannot emphasize this enough, because if I were to start going through the different things that are in the lab report here, you'd be shocked at what's in the water that is going to disrupt your GI system. We know that it's one of the number one sources of microplastics. We know that there's pharmaceuticals in the water. You know what the biggest three pharmaceuticals found in water are? One, women's contraception. So think about how that's going to affect anybody hormonally, man or woman. The second one is antidepressants. I don't know if you know the long-term data on that in regards to how it affects the brain and the GI system. And then the third pharmaceutical is antibiotics, which also disrupts the gut. And by the way, in my opinion, and there's good data to support this, autoimmune issues most likely are coming from your gut, okay? And so you have to get your gut right. And so hydrogen actually has been shown to be amazing for gut health. I mean, it absolutely transformed my gut. The inflammation, feeding the good gut bacteria, the gut starting to work properly again, overcoming constipation is another big one. On and on it goes. So to overcome nutritional deficiencies, here's a product that I use. It's actually really great, because in the research I found is that food is what the body responds to best. So I'm not really a big pill person, like, oh, take this pill and that pill. I'm not really big on pills. Every ingredient in this stuff right here is just food. That's all it is. It's literally just food, but it's really high quality, clean food. I used to use a different product, and when I always look at lab tests, they would have little residue of pesticides. Almost everything does, even though it's organic. This was the first product I'd ever seen that did not come up positive for pesticides. And so I was really kind of blown away by it. And I put this in my smoothie. It's called Power Shake for anybody who wants to see it. If the website's called iShopPurium.com. If you want to check this out, this is what I personally use. And if you want a discount code again, it's always the same discount code, Uprising144K. But this is what I use. And so I put that in my smoothie with all these fruits and vegetables, nuts and seeds, and periodically beans, because my smoothie is my multivitamin. The body responds best to food. So everything in that smoothie is food.
So what are you putting in your smoothie?
Oh, I put like rich leafy greens, kales. I put spinach. I have videos on there, by the way. I put chia seeds. I put blueberries. I put carrots. I put beets. Sometimes I'll put an apple, I'll put a banana, I put walnuts. Sometimes it'll be cashews, sometimes almonds. I put flax seeds. Today I put raw cacao in my smoothie on top of it with a little bit of matcha green tea from Japan. I put natto beans. I mean, I make different ones. So I make a different smoothie every single day, excuse me. And Sher, let me grab, since you're asking about the minerals too, let me show you what I got. Sorry. That I have to step away here for a second to grab it for you and show you what else I use. One of the other nutrients that's extremely important for health, I mean, I cannot emphasize it enough, the number one expert in the world I got to learn everything from in regards to vitamin D3 with K2. I use it in its ionic form. But vitamin D is so important for the body to function right. And obviously, a lot of people are highly deficient in vitamin D. And some people will even tell me things like, hey, I get enough sunshine, so I don't need vitamin D. The latest data, again, be data driven. I'm not trying to beat a dead horse here, but as you age, when sun hits the body and your skin, the latest data is showing that when you're getting older and older, your body's not even producing the proper levels of vitamin D.
Okay, so I wanna address that with you because we just had a guest on, and about I don't know 2 weeks ago, I had gone to this place called Restore Cryotherapy, and it's one of those places that they do the IV drips, they do cryotherapy, they do red light, all the things.
Yeah.
I ended up getting a vitamin D shot because I was like, I feel like I'm probably vitamin D deficient. I'm going to get one. And I've done it about 4 times. And every time I got a vitamin D shot, I felt horrible. And I was like, what is going on? Like every time I take this vitamin D shot, I felt terrible. And we had this guy who's like a scientist who's on our last episode, and he talked about vitamin D, and he talked about the fact that your vitamin A levels have to be 3 times what your vitamin D levels are. And so if you take too much vitamin D, what happens is, and I truly believe this with all my heart, is that this is one of the biggest problems is people overdo it with one vitamin and then your body has to compensate and then you're just a total mess. But I'm telling you as living proof, every time I took one of these vitamin D shots, I never felt worse. I mean, I was like, literally, I feel like death warmed over taking this vitamin D shot. So now I've started doing research and I'm really like, okay, now I'm really believing what he's saying. And he's like, no, you should get vitamin D from the sun and you shouldn't be supplementing with all of this vitamin D because it then messes up your vitamin A levels, and that your vitamin A levels have to be, in order for you to be optimum, 3 times what your vitamin D levels are. So I don't know. I'm just telling you what he said, but I'm living proof that taking these shots of vitamin D, I've never felt worse. So now I'm doing research about what this is because you're not convincing me that me taking that vitamin D3 and K2 is going to make me feel better.
Okay, so you are literally actually just made my point for me. You have to understand that you don't want to take too much of anything. Too much of anything is not good. I'm not telling you or anybody to pump themselves full of vitamin D. I think it's stupid. And to be honest, vitamin D shots, because I do think it's foolish. I think it's way too much for the body. Life is all about balance. Too much vitamin D is actually bad for you. Okay? Too much of anything is bad for you. You need to have proper levels. This is exactly why I went through a lot of blood work to find out exactly where my levels are at, and following literally the data from the number one expert in the world. This is a doctor who runs a hospital, and he has done amazing, literally miracles with vitamin D. But because you have to understand at what level and at what point it's going to be a benefit. And when I'm saying overcome every nutritional deficiency, and that includes vitamin A, all the nutrients work synergistically together. This is why you want everything working together. This is the reason that I don't have a million bottles of pills like, I got my vitamin A and my vitamin B12 and my vitamin D and my vitamin C and vitamin E and blah, blah, blah. I get it all from food because the body responds best to food. A lot of these supplements in pill forms, I've seen the lab tests. I am not a fan of what I'm seeing inside these pills. There's a lot of stuff in there that I'm not really a fan of. That's why I'm so picky about the products that I use. And I don't promote or use that many. I only use like maybe 4 or 5 products. And the main ones are the carbon distiller and the hydrogen machine. Those are foundational to good health. Vitamin D, you just need a little bit. And when you read this is what the data actually shows. A doctor will tell you that anything below a 50, you are deficient in vitamin D. Most people are below 50, actually. It's really bad. But the real latest data shows that you really want to be between like 80 to 90, maybe even 100, but never go past 100. It begins to cause other problems. And so I'm like in my 90s. And it's made such a dramatic difference also in regards to my immune system. I used to get sick at the drop of a hat because remember, I mean, I was really sick. My immune system absolutely sucked. I would get sick so easily and it would take me forever to overcome, just like the common cold or something. And the last 4 years have been like, for me, some of the best years ever because, knock on wood, but I haven't got sick at all. And I know that I've come in contact with a lot of stuff out there. And the way that my body is now responding, I am so happy because, I mean, I really suffered for a very long time. And it was absolute hell when your body is not cooperating. So no, I would not do some super strong injection of vitamin D at all. In fact, this is in a liquid form. I like liquid more than pills. And I just put literally a few drops, so not that much, it's a very small amount, into the actual smoothie that I'm consuming. So yeah, the way that you did it is not the way that I personally go about doing it. And I think, again, clearly the guy you talked to doesn't know the latest data about being exposed to the sun. It clearly shows that our body, now this is when you're older, and it also depends on the melanin, meaning like the pigment of your skin. So the amount of time that you would have to be out in the sun. And so the body not even really making proper levels of vitamin D once you start getting older. And I've seen that a lot actually with a lot of patients. So that's what I can tell you. But no, vitamin D is so important. All the nutrients are important, by the way. That's why I said overcoming all nutritional deficiencies. All your nutrients need to be where they're at because this body is, I mean, the ancient scriptures call it a temple. It really is like a structure. It's like a house or even a car. You don't want to be missing a support beam. You don't want to be missing a part of the foundation. You need all the pieces for the structure to be at its best. And the human body is no different. You need all those different nutrients at proper levels so that the body can literally work the way that it's intended to work.
So as far as, so right now, are you on a vegetarian diet or are you on a vegan diet? And how are you getting your B12 and your B vitamins?
So I don't really have like quote unquote a specific diet because I'm technically not vegan. I guess technically I wouldn't say that I'm vegetarian either. But a lot of it has to do with the ratios of the food that you eat. So I eat a lot of vegetables. So vegetables is a big one. I eat fruit. I do eat them less than vegetables. So again, I eat fruit, vegetables, nuts, seeds, beans, mushrooms. Once in a while I do eggs. I don't eat them super often. And once in a while I'll have seafood, but I don't do that very often. And then just me personally, I don't touch meat. And, I mean, the whole reason I don't touch meat is not because I think meat is evil or anything. If I wanted the nutrients from meat, I would use the magic of water to actually pull the nutrients. So like making certain types of broths, kind of like bone broth type of stuff. So I use water mostly because meat is dirty. I mean, I don't know if you've seen the lab tests. All the beef tested in America, and they've done multiple studies, they all test positive for fecal matter. So, I mean, that's pretty disgusting to me, and I'm kind of a germaphobe, so I think that's pretty gross. And then on top of it, I'm really big on parasites as far as the literature and understanding the science of parasites, how they keep the body from being able to absorb nutrients properly, how they manipulate you chemically and make you crave certain foods, how they absolutely wreak havoc on creating more free radicals in your body. I mean, they literally defecate inside of you, these parasites, and they rob you of nutrients and they eat things that...
But I am too. I think all... I am one of those people, I think all problems start with parasites. So let's talk about that for just a second, because I think we are all ridden with parasites and we need to get rid of them. So what is your favorite thing to do to cleanse the parasites?
Well, I actually created my own protocol. So the Japanese, again, are number one in the world in understanding parasites. They have a whole research facility for it. They have the #1 museum also for understanding parasites. And so I looked at their literature and I created an anti-parasitic protocol, which is pretty involved. I'm not able to really disclose it all right here. Plus some of it, places like YouTube, I used to have videos and I used to educate on it. I got attacked and I got flagged and YouTube almost shut me down because of videos that I had done years ago, by the way. And so I don't really talk a lot about it. You can find certain things like diatomaceous earth. The science on that is really great. They've done fecal tests on people who work at farms, people around animals, people who have cats and dogs. I hate to tell you, especially if you have them in your home, you're going to get their parasites. There's a reason that I got rid of my animals, which was really sad because I love animals and stuff, but I couldn't have them in the house, realizing that I was sick and that these parasites were playing a role in this, in my opinion. I did some anti-parasitic cleanses. I literally have pictures of the stuff that came out. It's completely gross. I can't believe that this stuff was even real. And you have to learn about different anti-parasitics because there is no silver bullet for parasites, by the way. They function a lot like bacteria in the sense that if you have an infection, they literally have to look at what type of antibiotic to use. It's the same thing with parasites. There's different kinds. So I use this broad spectrum protocol that I created, but diatomaceous earth is very inexpensive. I would definitely get food grade. And there's a lot of protocols online that you can find out. I actually use the hydrogen water with it to help clear out, the GI to some extent and keep it healthy. The other thing is most of the food I eat is actually anti-parasitic. So you'll be surprised to find out that basically a lot of vegetables, even some fruits, and even different types of nuts and these type of foods are actually anti-parasitic. You can find a lot of that literature also, again, reading the data. I also use other anti-parasitics that I can't really talk about, quote unquote, on a channel because I don't want to get you in trouble, but also found literature about hydrogen. This actually surprised me. I didn't know, but I literally found studies that when they were using hydrogen in the studies and they were studying parasites, and this particular study was for the liver, and the parasitic numbers came down quite a bit. So it's not that I think hydrogen kills parasites, in my opinion, but it creates an environment where parasites don't want to be. And that's actually, in my opinion, a good thing. So hydrogen really creates this wonderful, beautiful environment inside your body, and these bugs just don't want to be in there. And I think that that's the problem with parasites, is that they do have a function and they're going into the body for a reason. But that's one of the reasons that I also avoid, eating meat, especially pork. Pork is, I'll tell you, the ancient scriptures were right, in my opinion, when they said, do not eat pork, because the science on pork is pretty horrendous when it comes to parasites. And it can be darn right so dangerous that it can literally kill you sometimes. If you get one of these nasty parasites that actually ends up in your brain. There's been literally literature on people who, from eating pork, would get a little parasite, didn't even know it. It was eating away at their brain until they started having really bad symptoms. And so I just stay away from pork altogether. I do not. But yeah, I'm really big on keeping the temple as clean as possible, the human body, and it rewards you with good health.
I don't know about you guys, but I am stressed. And if you're feeling overwhelmed this holiday season, then I get it. With all the family get-togethers, it is just a relentless source of stress. But anyway, there is something that I've got called Stress Guardian, and it's actually made by Bioptimizers, the people who make the magnesium breakthrough, which I love, love, love. But anyway, they are literally made this new product. It has 14 adaptogenic herbs, and it just regulates your stress. I just actually took some right this second, and it's awesome. If you go to stressguardian.com/wasteaway and put in waste away for 10% off your first order, it's stressguardian.com/wasteaway. Go there now. Awesome. Well, this has been awesome. Tell listeners where they can find you and where they can follow you.
So if people really want to see all my best work, and again, everything's free, it's on YouTube. The name of the channel is called Uprising 144K. I am on Instagram. I don't do a ton of stuff there, but you can find me there also. Same name, Uprising 144K. Or you might even be able to search under the Hydrogen Man, but most of it's Uprising 144K. You can find me on Twitter or X also. I just post a little bit there, not a ton either. You can also find me on Rumble, but I also don't put a ton of stuff there. I'm not a big computer guy, and I've just been doing this all for free on a shoestring budget. So most of it is just kind of YouTube videos educating and showing what it is that I have done to overcome these crazy medical issues. And so just try to help people out there.
Awesome. Well, you guys stay tuned. We've got another episode coming up in just a few. Bye-bye for now.